Alright, vlog number 52, and I am coming to you from a location that I can guarantee no vlogger has ever come to you from, and that is the ghost town of Gold Point, Nevada. And it's actually not a ghost town. There are 6 people that live here. Yes, the population of Gold Point is 6, and I just talked to one of them, actually a really nice guy, for an interview for Silver State Sites. But this is truly an old Nevada mining town, and you can take a look around at some of the video that I shot here, and it proves exactly that. A place that was booming back in the late 1800s into the 1900s, but has since really fallen off, but is just barely being kept alive. Anyway, gonna head on into Las Vegas, staying at the Wynn for a couple of days, where gonna play, of course, some cash game action. Checking in on this vlog for the first time from a location that needs no introduction. Decided to get into town and come right here. I'm actually going to turn this into a Silver State Sites, even though it's not typically what I do for the segment. In all honesty, it was an easy one to shoot. That's really the main reason why I did it. And it's a cool video. Here at the Welcome to Fabulous Las Vegas sign on Las Vegas Boulevard. We jump into the 2-5 game at the Wynn, and the action picks right up. Under the gun +1 over limps, and +2 makes the call. The low jack calls as well, and I'm in the hijack after this limp fest with pocket 10s. I make it 35. The button immediately calls. The first 2 limpers fold, and +2 calls. That brings it back around to the low jack, who then jams all in for $235. I'm definitely not going to fold to a guy who over-limped 3 others in this spot and then back-raised all in, so I make the call. 34. The other 2 players fold, so with $550 in the pot, we're going to see 5 cards. I ask him what he has, and he won't show. That's actually the one thing, by the way, that I like about tournaments better than cash games. I feel that the card should always be shown in all ins. I feel that the other players in the game earn the right to see what's going on given the rake that they pay, but that's neither here nor there for the purposes of this hand. He ends up having ace-queen offsuit, and we hold for a nice start to the trip. Next hand, under the gun +2 limps, and the hijack makes it 20. The small blind calls, and I have king, jack of hearts in the big blind. I make the call, and the limper does as well. So with 80 in the pot, the flop is slightly above average. 8, 7, 4, all hearts. The small blind checks, and given that the hijack has been pretty active, I decide to check it over to him. Unfortunately, this time he doesn't bet, and it gets checked to a turn that comes in offsuit 9. I bet 60, and everyone folds. Next hand, I overlimp 6-4 of clubs on the button. We see a flop 4 ways of king 8-4 with 1 club. The under the gun limper bets 15. 1 player folds, and I make the call with a pair, a backdoor flush draw, and position. So with 50 in the pot, we see a turn of the 3 of clubs, completing the first half of my backdoor flush. Under the gun leads for 30, and I decide to semi-bluff here, making it 115. He thinks about it for a minute and lays it down. The fact that I had been playing pretty tight up to this point probably helped my image in that spot. Next hand, under the gun +1 opens to 15 and +2, and the hijack make the call, and I'm in the cutoff with ace of clubs, king of spades, and I make it 65. The original raiser calls, the hijack calls, so with 210 in the pot, it comes ace 10-4, 2 clubs. Under the gun +1 checks, and the hijack donk leads for 70. I decide not to raise here, hoping that he will follow through on the turn as well. So with 350 in the pot, the turn comes the 8 of clubs, giving me the nut flush draw, and now he checks. I figure he has a weak ace here, and is virtually drawing dead, so I bet small to make sure he stays in. I bet 75, and he does stay in. So with 500 in the pot, the river comes the 9 of clubs, giving me the nuts, and he checks. I found it fairly difficult to get paid off big in spots like this, so I decided to size down a bit, making it 150. He does indeed call, so we take down an $800 pot. Got a late start filming this next hand, where, to quote Jeff Boski, an Asian male ages 25 through 50 makes it 15 in the cutoff, and I'm in the button with ace-king. I make it 35, and he calls. So at 70 in the pot, the flop comes Jack, Jack 3, 2 hearts. He donk leads for $55 into me. I've already seen him make this move light before, so I'm not folding. I could raise, but I don't think that he's coming off of his draws, so I call. With 180 in the pot, the turn is an offsuit 4, and now he checks. I decided to check it back here, and the river comes an offsuit king, giving me top pair, and now he leads for 140. My instinct told me that the king didn't really mean much here. Either I was good on the flop or I'm still behind. Either way, folding here should be punishable by hard time in the Ely State Prison. So I call, and he shows 10-9 of hearts for a missed flush draw, and we take down a $460 pot, and ace-king is working out for me so far on this trip. Next hand, we get a limp and a $25 raise from a young guy in the low jack. The hijack calls, and I have pocket 7s in the cutoff. I make the call, and the big blind calls as well. So we see a flop 4 ways with 100 in the pot, and it comes 8-8-6 rainbow. It gets checked to me, and I bet 50, firmly thinking I have the best hand. It folds to the original raiser, the young guy in the low jack, who calls. So with 200 in the pot, we're heads up to a turn of the 3 of clubs, bringing in backdoor clubs. He checks, and I bet 65, still thinking I have the best hand here. He thinks about it for a minute and makes the call. So at $330 in the pot, we see a very interesting river. It comes the 7 of clubs, giving me a full house. And now he checks. It's really hard to say when I'm putting him on here, but I didn't want to bet too big to get him off some of his 2-pair hands, so I decided to bet 175. He thinks about it for a minute before check raising to 565. At this point, the hand that makes the most sense to me is a flopped full house. And certainly pocket 6s makes a little more sense than 8-6. Though obviously the difference is critical here. But he did raise before the flop. So 8-6 seems a little skeptical. But I think at this point, given the fact that the backdoor flush came in as well, we have a pretty easy shove in this spot, which is what I do. He sort of sighs before snap calling. So we have a $2,200 pot, which obviously I am going to be taking down after that sigh. He doesn't show, but later on he says that he had a pair, and then he rivered the nut flush. So it looks like he had the ace-6 of clubs, if he was telling the truth. Later on, we get an under-the-gun limp from an older guy in a cowboy hat, and a raise to 25 from under-the-gun +2. I'm in the big blind with Queen Jack of clubs, and I make the call. So with 75 in, the flop comes 10-5-7, all clubs. I check, hoping to get a bet out of the pre-flop raiser, but I don't, as it gets checked through. The turn is a red 10, and now I lead out for 50. The guy under the gun in the cowboy hat decides to make the call, and the pre-flop raiser throws his hand away. With 175 in, the river comes the 4 of hearts. I bet 100, planning on actually folding to a raise given the player that I was up against, but he calls me with king 10 of spades for trip 10s, and we take down another one, a $375 pot here, and the heater continues. All right, a long first day on this Vegas trip. Booked a $314 win here at the Wynn, so we'll not complain about that. Gonna be back at it for a much longer day tomorrow.
A good comparison is if you had sex with a super hot girl, but it only happened once. Sure, you got that memory, but if you don't have videotape, oh wait.